Hey everybody, welcome back to Northernlion plays the Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. I'm a little disheartened and embarrassed. 2 wins? 2 wins in Isaac? What a world. Oh, I knocked over my water bottle onto my Switch. What a disaster. Just kidding, the water bottle was closed, sweetheart, and empty. Much like my emotional depth. Hold on. Here's your seed, by the way. G1B1 CDP8. Number 2. Number 2 is a good item. Controversial opinion, mayhaps. I'm okay with that. I'm real, I wouldn't say I'm out of practice, but again, like I know probably in the last Isaac episode I recorded, I was like, man, isn't it nice that I'm back to like 100% efficiency when it comes to recording? And then, you know, my parents are in town. It's not a bad thing. I want that to be clear. It's an awesome thing. For a number of reasons. I love seeing my family. They come to visit me more often than we go to visit them, so I'm not complaining at all. You know, it's just awesome to catch up with them. And I say this all the time, but the older I get, the closer I get to being peers with my parents, even though we disagree on a number of issues, as you might expect. But it's almost like we can hang out as... I mean, I say this having considered the specificity of the word, and I mean it. We can hang out as friends. It's very nice. But at the same time, I'm like, oh boy. Man, we've been moving. And then on top of that, to immediately have that addled deficiency go into, like, now we're spending a lot of time with my parents while they're here, obviously, which is a pleasure to do, I want to be clear. I haven't been recording as much Isaac as I like. You know, you basically, every day is like emergency rations. No HP, please. Because I could have died as Lazarus and then came back. But yeah, suffice it to say, you know, you record whatever is most pressing for that given day. And then move on. So today, had to knock out some Bumbo. In fact, Bumbo is likely to remain the most pressing thing for a long time, because I had less time to make a backlog. And, you know, whether you know what you're doing or not, every Bumbo episode is like an hour long. I'm definitely reaching the end of the content in Bumbo, and I'm going to have to decide how we're going to approach it. For right now, look, it's still early in the game's lifespan. Do I see it being a 100-part Let's Play? Well... I mean, we're only on, like, episode 20. 100 is not ridiculous. You know, if you're out there and you're like, wow, 100 episodes, that's insane. You're watching the wrong channel, brother. We've got, I don't know, like, at least 600 episodes of, oh, we get both? It does both. We've got, like, 600-700 episodes of Slay the Spire. Isaac, obviously, we're in, like, the 3,000 or 4,000s. There's so many, we can't even be sure. Thank you, thank you. Old Bandage, Dark Bum, great combination, of course. So this is not a foreign situation for us to make 100 episodes of something. Definitely got more than 100 episodes of Gungeon, you know? 100 is plausible. 1,000, I would say very, very, very unlikely. Use it. Sure. Sure. I mean, that's a pretty good setup here. This is the kind of setup that could get you in a good position to potentially win the game, honestly. It's not that I think Bumbo is bad. You have to clarify that. In a world where people put potentially thousands of hours into games, you know, saying a game is like a 100 or 200 hour experience almost comes across as an insult. But I do think I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, Bumbo is solved. It doesn't mean... You know, hold on. 5 cents for a free... Well, it's not a free card, I guess, in that case. But 5 cents for a card is a pretty smoking deal. Although we could have gotten a deal with the devil. What do we care about a free deal with the devil? We got so much HP. I definitely feel like... I don't even know... It's in a dangerous position, let me put it that way, for games. And, I'm cognizant of the fact that for me, it feels like I haven't talked about my opinion on Bumbo in a while, but for you, if you're watching Isaac episodes, you're like, you talk about this every day. Like, no, I talked about it once this week and once last week. They just happened to be in the Isaac videos. It's hard to keep it all straight, okay? Anyway, the point is, it's in the position where I'm like, the game is, in my opinion, a little bit too easy to bust wide open, which is fine. But I think if you want to make it more engaging, it has to get harder. But I don't know how you balance that game to make it more difficult while also still making it fun, you know? Because just in general, I don't know how fun is taking damage. It's not that fun when you put it that way. Honestly, I think you yeet this whole life here. I know that we should have done it earlier, but is it worth it to do this? I honestly do believe that the answer to the question is yes. Though it sounds bizarre. Why don't you go ahead and take that. We get luck and damage, HP, and then immediately a spirit heart to protect us as well. It's a good situation. So please do not take this NL friendship ended with Bumbo. Honey Pop is my new best friend. That's not the case. I still like it. I'm just like, how are you gonna balance this? You don't need to balance it. It could still just be a good, you know, $15, 30-hour game. I think Bumbo is a success in that regard for sure. Not every game has to be, you know, a 1,000-hour-long roguelite. Especially once you've already got a roguelite you've put 1,000 hours into. I mean, quite frankly, I'm like, dude, man, to have games that they just finish? What a world. Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty good. So, if we weren't already convinced of the victorious nature of this situation, we definitely are now. Especially, Holy Mantle number 2 is, we're in a, what's the opposite of an indefensible position? I guess, like, the opposite of indefensible is just defensible. But I mean, like, the inverse. It's not impossible to defend. It's impossible to not defend. Is there a word for that? It seems like the kind of thing that doesn't come up that much in the English language, you know? It's indefensible. It's a compulsory defense. I want to show that to the Canucks. Okay, hold on. With no coupon? Excuse me, can you pass the gray coupon? No, but really, we would... I mean, I'd go for some Dijon mustard, but... Dude, I've been killing myself laughing here. So, I have told you many times I was a picky eater growing up, right? And now I'll eat anything. It shocks my parents to some extent because, you know, imagine, you know, your child, when you send them away to university at like 17, they don't even eat soup because it's so too wet. They don't eat rice because it's just, it's a lot of work to just get, you know, some carbohydrate. I just ate, like, when I would order something from like Subway, for example, I would be like, turkey sandwich on wheat bread, please. Cheese, 50-50. It's not that I didn't like it, but, you know, I was kind of, like, nutritionally obsessed sometimes. And they're like, vegetables? I'm like, nah, just a little bit of honey mustard, please. So I was getting bread, mustard, deli turkey. First off, how can you reconcile being nutritionally curious and then eating that for lunch now and then? It's a hard thing to explain. The mid-2000s were hard on everybody, okay? I'll just take that and go, I think. Maybe we'll buy a key first. Why wouldn't we, right? Get that. But, you know, I've come a long way. Even when we went out for dinner last night. It was dinner for my birthday. I'm even going to buy the card. I want to see what we got. Ooh, do-do-do-do. And I was looking at the menu, and I was like, oh, I would have... There's so many things here I would not have eaten when I was growing up, you know? I was like, ooh, a trout belly pasta? That sounds interesting. I didn't get that. Instead, I got an 8-ounce beautiful porchetta. Just absolutely... is an indelicate, yet decadent feast. You know what I mean? skin, fat, meat. You get the idea. Regardless, I've been eating a lot with my parents, and I've realized where I got my picky eating taste from. My mom will eat anything, for the most part. She doesn't eat beef, which I understand is at least modestly unusual. But it's, you know, she doesn't eat red meat for, like, coronary reasons, basically. Whether I feel those are valid or not, it's her personal decision, right? But my dad is not allergic, but is disgusted by mayonnaise. Not uncommon. I don't like to see big globs of mayonnaise in anything that I consume. That's for certain. And I'll still even be a little grossed out. If I get like a hamburger or a sandwich or something and there's a ton of mayonnaise on it, I'll eat it. But it's like I would rather not know. A little mayo, not a problem at all. But my dad is like, he's so mayonnaise averse. And it comes up all the time at every restaurant, deli, sandwich place, etc., etc. Salads, you know, he's got to be like... I was looking at some of these menus. Like, we went to was basically a deli yesterday. And he wanted to get a sandwich. There's 4 sandwiches on the menu, okay? There's a chicken sandwich. It's served with a Dijonaise. Like, on the sandwich. There was a turkey sandwich. It's got an aioli. There was a vegetable... burger, basically like a, I don't know, like a beet burger or something like that, which probably wouldn't have been an option for him to begin with, but also came with some kind of aioli. And then there was a tuna salad sandwich, which obviously has a mayonnaise component. And he's like, I just can't get anything. It's funny, and here's the thing, my dad is, he's 50, 54 maybe? That sounds right. He's in his mid-50s. I'm not gonna tell him, you know, you lived your whole life not liking mayonnaise. You know, the time is now. I don't want to ruin his... I'll take this. I don't want to ruin his day by making him eat some mayonnaise. Maybe psychosomatically he gets sick to his stomach or something like that. If he's decided he doesn't like mayonnaise, that's fine. But it does make for... dining can be an uncomfortable experience on occasion as a result of it, though, because, you know... you gotta ask about all these things that may or may not have mayonnaise, and then if there's like a cream sauce, even that can be a little much. I think it's just, look, I'll say it. I think my dad has a problem with white goop. But I realize where I got it from. My dad he's not it's weird. He's not a picky eater. But he's extremely picky about one very common food additive. You want to call it a condiment, whatever. But mayonnaise is also like a lot of, you know, a lot of sandwiches, soups, even like entrees. They'll use even some sushis and stuff like that. They'll use some variant of a mayonnaise-derived component in the dish. So he's not a picky eater. I don't think it's fair to call him a picky eater just because there's one class of food that he doesn't eat. Because he'll eat, you know... Well, actually, now yesterday I was thinking about it. My mom, at the deli, she got like a Brussels sprout salad, and she was like, honey, you should try some of this. And he was like, I don't know, it looks a little saucy. Maybe he is a picky eater. I've realized it wasn't just me. I thought that I picked up my picky eaterness as a child from nothing because both of my parents were less picky than I was. It turns out what I did is I took the pickiness from my dad and just amplified it. And then had to get over it later in life. Which I've told you many times I would encourage you to do. I mean, it's fine, you know, if you're a picky eater. You know, I bring it up now and then. Sometimes Austin comes across as a picky eater. I don't think he is. Austin's told me, I mean, he orders Thai food, you know, Chinese food, Italian food, Indian food, Tex-Mex, obviously. He runs the gamut. I've heard Austin say that for lunch he had like an acai bowl. I think as soon as you start eating acai bowls, you're not a nuclear grade picky eater, you know? Man, don't even get me started. There was that The most popular thread on Twitter this month, I'm pretty sure that's literal, by the way, but was quote tweet this tweet with your most controversial food opinion that you believe is actually correct. I got a lot of, thank you so much for your support. There was a tweet that went viral. I think it was a journalist, said, when people say they have food poisoning, 99% of the time, they have an illness that is derived from another source, but they just blame it on the last fast food or ethnic restaurant they ate at. And I was like, thank you. People saw my age-old opinion about food poisoning echoed, and people started to buy it a little bit, which was awesome. Because I think that's honestly true. I also, and this is anecdotal, but I saw people in the comments, like for the tweet, that were like, I live outside of North America, and people here very rarely seem to say that they get food poisoning. So I think it's like, it's a weirdly North American, because they say it in Canada all the time. Weirdly like North American phenomenon to assume that anytime you have a gastrointestinal distress is caused by like the last food you ate from a restaurant that you have no idea whether it was clean or dirty. And come on, you're gonna tell me you think that, like, you know, don't take this the wrong way. You think that Europe has better food safety than America? Better food? Maybe. I'm not insulting either. I think that's a ridiculous statement to be like America or Europe has bad food. Obviously, both of those are just idiotic. But, you know, in America, you keep your eggs in the fridge. In Europe, a lot of places, you keep your eggs outside of the fridge. In America, they'll cook your pork chop till it looks like shoe leather. In Europe, they might not be opposed to giving you a little pinkish on the inside. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, things are... Haven't you seen Euro Trip? They play fast and loose with the rules over there. So I don't think it's a food safety related issue. Regardless. I say... There's such a bevy of tweets there. There was so much I learned so much about some people that I follow. The most controversial food opinion you actually believe. One person I follow said, you know, the most harmful culinary genocide in history is 1950s America adopting processed food instead of, well, anyway, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. And I was like, well, that's, you know, there's insightful, like, academic stuff there. And then another person I follow was like, all beer tastes the same. And I was like, wow. I'm getting a lot of different stuff out of this. All beer does not taste the same. I mean, that's just, I don't want to say it's false. I mean, it's literally false. But I don't want to rag on the person. But, you know, I'm not a snob about it, you know. What all that says to me is, like, you know, you haven't consumed that much beer, which in general is probably actually a good thing. But it also makes you disqualified to have the opinion. You know, an oatmeal stout versus, you know, a Belgian wheat beer versus a sour versus, I mean, you get the idea. Versus a porter versus a double IPA versus a, you know. Now, I kind of level with you to some extent. I mean, I've told you I'm pretty sure that like 80%, possibly 99 to 100% of the craft beer industry is basically just an excuse to drink too much and then pretend like it's a hobby instead of an affliction. I'm sorry, I meant to phrase it in a nicer way, but instead I said the quiet part loud. But... you know, they don't all taste the same. Come on. It's like me saying all tofus taste the same. I don't know that. You know, I have tofu from time to time. When I drink it, or when I eat it, I'm like, this is tofu. But I would never say that. What's my most controversial food opinion that I believe is true? I mean, it's got to be the food poisoning one. I was very happy to see that echoed, though. People don't, in my opinion, people don't know they have food poisoning. And they always blame a restaurant, particularly if it serves a type of food they're not used to. Get me out of here. Instead of, you know, maybe they took a little poo-poo and didn't wash their hands. I've been in the comments. I've been in the Twitch chats. A lot of y'all aren't washing your hands. Apparently you don't have 30 seconds to spare on a daily basis. And then when people call you out for it, you act like you're strengthening, you know, the herd immunity of mankind. It's just ridiculous. It's 2 small enemies in one run. What a world. The other thing is, and this came up a lot in the fast food food poisoning discussion too. People were like, people always assume it's fast food that gives you the illness. If there's any, I'm not saying that all fast food places are, you know, created equal, because, you know, I've been to some sketchy Burger Kings in my day. But if there's any establishment that you would expect to cook their food in such a fashion that foodborne illness is nearly impossible, you know, it would be a fast food restaurant. The one exception I have is the one time I did, in my opinion, once in my life, I believe I got food poisoning from a Burger King. I'm gonna hit you with why, okay? Because I know it sounds hypocritical. There's extenuating circumstances that lead me to this position. I went there with 2 other friends of mine the day of one of my friends throwing a party. Me and the friend throwing the party had Burger King. The third friend did not. About 8 hours later, the friend who was throwing the party was throwing up in the bathroom. You just assume it's alcohol related, but he's like, no, I didn't drink that much. I just actually feel like super sick. And you're like, yeah, whatever, dude. Okay, ha ha ha. Everybody had to go home. Couple of days later, or maybe like 12 hours later, to be honest, I started feeling horrible. And I was talking to him, and we had the same symptoms. And for like a decade, we both assumed because his mom was a nurse that she had carried like some kind of contagious norovirus home. Or Norwalk, I should say. Then, when we were putting the pieces together, we were like, wait a minute. We ate at that Burger King. And our other mutual friend did not eat at the Burger King. He didn't get sick. I'm not saying it was foodborne illness, but that's as close to like a scientific experiment as we're ever gonna get in the wild, you know? 2 of 3 people ate the food, 2 of 3 people got sick. And it's the same 2 people, there's 100% correlation there. I don't know if this corroborates the story more, but that Burger King was also... I said was shut down. That's me using language instead of science. It went out of business / ceased to operate within like a year or 2 years of that. So I'm not saying it happens. I'm not saying it was because they got shut down by the health department. I never looked into it. That's the one situation. If I wanted to have an ignorant food opinion, like if the question is meant to be phrased like, hey, just make people mad with your answer, I do have an answer. I eat them all the time, but I still believe this in my heart of hearts. You don't really need gimpy, I think. I think there's like 4 good kinds of mushrooms. Shiitake mushrooms, delicious. Oyster, lobster mushrooms, fantastic. I know you're going to be like, what about portobello? I do like them, but, you know. Anyway, those mushrooms are 10 out of 10. Most mushrooms are not good. Button mushrooms, cremini mushrooms, not good. Some mushrooms are disgusting. Enoki mushrooms, you know, the big mushroom cluster. That is a food that I eat, but I find it unpleasant to do so. That's my opinion. I'm not anti-mushroom. I am anti-enoki mushroom. I'm very pro, like, an oyster mushroom and shiitake, for sure. You know, I'm kind of just, like, too lazy to walk the rest of the floor. If you just want to give me a new one, that sounds A-okay to me, brother. That's my controversial food opinion for you. How's that? It's not even that controversial. I don't know. Any food opinion, and I'm not trying to, you know, rain down on the person, but any food opinion is like, hey, you know that thing that, like, you know, millions or maybe even billions of people like? I think it's bad. That's just ignorant. And you're like, what about your mushroom opinion? Yeah. I mean, I recognize. You might remember I prefaced it by calling it ignorant. In case you don't recall, the most wonderful reindeer of all. But anything like, you know, I'll tell you, like, straight up, not all wine tastes the same to me. But all red wine tastes like red wine to me. All white wine tastes like white wine. And all, you know, champagne or sparkling wine tastes like sparkling wine. To me, my wine palate is unrefined, and I don't really have a desire to improve it. I would say that, you know, if you want to put a bow on it, sure. All wines of the same variety taste the same to me. But it's not true. I mean, I don't believe that the wine industry is just, you know, a bunch of people willfully lying to one another. Again, I think it's an excuse to drink too much. And then call it a hobby. And with wine, there's also an element of, oh, you fool, culturedness as well. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I'm not saying you can't, you know, have healthy limits in place. It's just my 2 cents on the subject. You know, my palate's not there. My actual controversial opinion. Oh, if you wanted to get really granular with it, I feel like Vancouver has better modest sushi than Tokyo, which is gonna sound very biased. I live here. I've not eaten at every sushi place, you know, under $30 per person in Tokyo. But I've eaten at, you know, my fair share. At the very least, I could rephrase it. I've had, like, a few truly spectacular sushi meals in Japan. And I think if you get the legit sushi experience, obviously, that's probably the place to do it, right? But I had some insanely baller sushi in Vancouver as well. I'm not saying, you know, oh, I had that California roll that would make your head explode. I'm talking, I've had some fish plus rice served on an old wooden shoe from a counter, and I've done it in both places. I've been like, I'm not sure that consistently in Tokyo is any better. Except there was one place Kate took me to that was unbelievable. But anyway. Regardless of all that, it was a good Twitter thread. It got me going, you know? Unpopular opinion. Oh, sushi, why am I paying you to not cook my food? If I wanted that, I would just eat out of the refrigerator like a rat. Well, I already do that, okay? So, I mean, everybody must have those foods where they're like, people don't actually like this, they're just pretending. People think I'm pretending when I like kale. I saw actually within that Twitter thread there were people that were like, every superfood is just an excuse for the agriculture industry to sell us garbage. See, kale, quinoa, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, hold on, quinoa, sure. Out of all the carbohydrate, starchy staples, quinoa, I don't dislike it, but it's not the tastiest. For me, at least, I'll give you that. You leave kale out of this. Kale is a delicious leafy green, okay? Is it a little tougher than like an iceberg lettuce? Okay, yeah. Is it maybe a little bit more bitter? Yeah, I would say that's probably fair. But bitter is not bad, you babies. Get over it. Everybody, when I ask them their favorite leafy green, they always say the same thing, and then they look at me as if they've given me like an answer I can't debate. Spinach. Okay, sure. spinach. I mean, I got nothing against spinach. I don't want to drag spinach's name through the mud just to glorify kale. I'm like, dude, just get over it. Here's my problem with that, and I know that we haven't talked about anything related to Isaac in 10 years here, but, you know, whatever. It's episode 4000. Kale does not taste different enough from the other leafy greens for it to get the bad rap that it does. They're all leaves. They all have a leafy taste to them, okay? Oh, this leaf is slightly crunchier than the other leaf. It's not, you know, get over it. Is my 2 cents at least. I do have foods that I'm like, you know, of course I don't actually believe people are pretending to like it for like street cred or whatever. But, you know, some stuff where I'm like, man, people really like this. I'll tell you, you know, here's one that might surprise you. I derive no pleasure from udon or soba. I've eaten them multiple occasions. Instant restaurants, you know, in Japan. It does not appeal to me. I mean, it appeals to me on a caloric level. You know, after I eat it, I'm like, I had dinner. It does not appeal to me on a culinary level at all. It's just one of those foods I just sort of don't get. I like ramen, like a restaurant ramen. I'm not trying to be a snob about instant ramen, but I ruined that food for myself by, like, 90% of the instant ramen I've eaten in my entire life was the 1 year I was in Korea, and also I was usually hungover when I was eating it. Because it's like, it's 11 a.m., I feel like garbage. What can I get from the convenience store that's cheap and restorative? You know. 65-cent Shin Ramen, okay. They even got the hot water so you can heat it up in the GS25 or the Family Mart. But I love, like, restaurant ramen. If you were like, hey, you want to go out for ramen? I'm like, do it every day. If you're like, you want to go out for udon? I'm like, oh, no. And you're like, it's the same thing. What's the difference? I'm like, it's not the same thing. You don't understand. The udon noodles they're thick. They're like they're not the same temperature throughout. They're bready. It's weird. Anyway. There are other foods I feel like people are pretending about too. But, I mean, not really, but I don't understand a hard-boiled egg. I mean, I'm 50-50 on eggs at the best of the time. I understand the irony. Here's the thing, I wasn't always bald. But anyway. Only for half of my life so far. Close. Soon. But, like a hard-boiled egg in particular, oh, you just never had them done the right way. No, I've had them right. I've had them soft-boiled. I've had them no green on the inside. You know, like the sulfurous aspect. I've had them done at, you know, great places and holes in the wall. I've run the gamut. I've never derived a sense of pleasure from a hard-boiled egg. Sincerely. It's not for me. I don't know. I also find it frustrating to peel. I've seen the life hack, but here's the thing. It's not really a life hack to make it easier to peel a hard-boiled egg if you never want to have one to begin with. If you're constantly eating hard-boiled eggs but annoyed by how long they take to peel, yeah, the life hack with the cold water is going to help you out a great deal. If you never want to see a hard-boiled egg again as long as you live, it's a much tougher sell. Speaking of which, this is like the longest chest I've ever seen. Sure, why not? Those are pretty big positives for the most part. I'm just gonna level with you. There's been quite a lot of laziness in this run. Once we got Holy Mantle and Sack Dagger, I basically stopped trying to not get hit once per room. The thing is, we're still gonna win. I apologize for my lazy play. It's not gonna bleed over into the next episode, because I'm not recording the next episode until probably like 2 days from now. So I'm not sweating it right now. But yes, I recognize. I spent the whole episode talking about food. That's because I'm thinking about what I'm going to order for dinner tonight when my parents come over, okay? Which honestly should happen at any point within the next, like, 0 to 300 seconds. I'm surprised they're not here already. They're usually early. They're an early crowd, and it's 6:55. They're supposed to be here by 7. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hit me up with your most controversial food opinion, and I'll see you next time. See ya!